Hi, my name is Alejandro Perez Perez, and this is the AI Coffee Podcast. Every week, we explore a disruptive aspect of technology and artificial intelligence for the time to drink a cup of coffee. Today, we are going to learn a lot about blockchain and Web3. And for doing that, we have an expert, Eric Cabañas, which is here with me, next to me, in front of me, let's see, in the other side of the screen, maybe. So, welcome, Eric. How are you?
Hello, Alejandro. Very good. A bit nervous, but I think it's going to be a wonderful experience, and hopefully, we will learn a bit about Web3 and blockchain today.
I think we are going to do it. But just before I start talking about that, let's talk a bit about your experience because I haven't said it before, but also you are an expert in project management. And I think you also communicate a lot through LinkedIn about how to manage a project, how to start a project on Web3 and blockchain. So just before we start, I am curious about what inspired you to start a career on that field.
Um, so, in order to answer the question, I'm going to go back some years. I first got into web development, into the software development sector field in 2017, which in fact was the same year I got into investing into cryptocurrencies. So some years ago, right? Um, at first hand, at the beginning, I was just interested in investing, and that's it. And that was a side hobby. But throughout my career, I've been working as a product management for almost 8 years, helping startups launch and scale their products. And through these last couple of years, I've seen something that was quite interesting in Web3 in particular, which is the idea of ownership, right?
Mm-hmm.
So later on, I will explain a bit more about this. But as the economy is turning more digital every day, it's very important to note that all of the assets that we create could be videos, Instagram reels, um, LinkedIn posts, whatever we create is a digital asset. But the problem with Web2 is that we do not own that asset. So I will be giving examples of LinkedIn because it's where I'm most familiar. But just as a quick message, if LinkedIn decides to ban you for whatever reason, they can do it because the content and our profile and everything, our digital asset in LinkedIn is theirs, not ours. So yeah.
Okay, so just for giving context to the audience, and maybe we will be talking a lot about that during this episode, which I guess is a little bit technical, but really interesting though. There are many differences between people talking about the internet and digital technologies. They consider that what we have nowadays, let's say at 2025, most of the digital social networks or the websites are Web 2, which is, for example, as Eric says, for example, LinkedIn or Instagram or YouTube or whatever, like a normal website, let's say. But there is another disruptive revolution, let's say, which is Web3, which is more on the ownership. That we will be talking a lot about that because there are a lot of tools. Actually, Eric, you told me one a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about this episode. You talked me about one for newsletters instead of using, for example, Substack, which is one of the most trendy Web2 newsletter tools. So there's like new different tools that gives you the ownership of the content you create and as Eric says, it's very, very relevant. But before talking about that, just let's continue talking about you, Eric, because I guess this is very, very inspiring. Your point of view of taking into account your digital assets, your digital perspective. But um, why did you decide to go on that? Because it's like more. You could continue maybe a career on the project management inside a company. I guess there are thousands of opportunities on that. But why focusing on these specific points, which I guess are maybe difficult or too technical sometimes?
In the last couple of years, as I progressed in my professional career, I was really eager to start my own project, to be an entrepreneur. So this passion, this ambition, started fading into um, this aspiration because I really wanted to build something on my own, and with friends and colleagues and so on, we worked, we brainstormed, we tried different things, but nothing stick. So this ambition started to turn into frustration because it's like, how come everyone's becoming an entrepreneur, so to say, and I'm not able to do it, even though I do have the knowledge of what it takes to take a project from zero to one. So eventually, the year started rolling, and by 2020 or 2021, more or less, we launched a startup, with yeah with some colleagues, and this startup was basically a phone application that allowed that helped users find interesting places or events nearby. So it was an application for tourists with a recommendation engine that learned from their behavior. So we could say it had some kind of machine learning algorithm inside. It was not just a dumb application which showed you things, and that's it, right? Um, at that time, I worked at two companies, so we were launching this startup, and also I was still working at Sparsity, which we were leading software projects in the area of smart mobility and logistics. Um, I burned out. I had a lot of work. I was very interested, but still I wasn't finding my passion in all of this. And so I decided to quit both jobs. And it was quite a hard decision to make. But I think, like some people say, it's sometimes best to burn your bridges and start from scratch without limitations. And so I did, and that's when I turned freelance, and in particular as a project manager, right? And so you were asking me why I decided to focus on Web3. So basically because there's a lot to do, okay? And as as we product managers like to say, you can only judge a product by its third version, and this is because first version is a bare bones MVP. So okay, it's just to test out an assumption. Second version, you start putting enhancing some features and fixing some bugs. Third version, it's when things start to get interesting. Turns out internet is starting to come to this Web3, and there's plenty of work to do. But it's a version that's going to be very interesting and very, I would say, um, revolutionizing. So
Mhm.
so that's it.
So you are prepared for that. You just want to explore the new paradigm of internet, the third version of internet. So let's talk a bit about that. I think it's the moment now to start talking about the Web3 because, as I said before, it's a new thing that it's coming. Maybe if a person is listening this episode, maybe in 2030, maybe this is the normal thing, maybe not, who knows, but it's maybe more probable that in 10 years, 5 years, this new idea of internet is going to be the normal thing, I guess. But now I guess for part of the audience, or even for most of the people listening to us now, it's a bit revolutionary. So, can you explain a bit what is exactly Web3? Which are the links with blockchain because they have a lot, and also why it's not only talking about crypto? Because when we talk about blockchain, usually the other thing that appears in mind to I think most of us is cryptocurrencies, which is another thing, which is okay. It's just another different story. But blockchain and Web3, I think they have much more utilities rather than crypto, but they're very, very unknown. So, can you explain us a bit?
Yes. So I'll start by saying that Web3, blockchain, cryptocurrencies, they're linked terms, but they're different things. And I will start by talking about blockchain, um, and then Web3. So blockchain technology has around 30 years. It's 30 years old. So it was first introduced in the early 90s. And blockchain is what we know as a DLT, a distributed ledger technology. So distributed ledger technologies are similar, but not quite the same as databases, where you can store information, but they're different. So in a database, there's four basic actions you can do in any database. Doesn't matter if it's SQL, no SQL, just four actions, and they stand by CRUD: create, update, delete, and read. I said it backwards, but yeah. So let's take, for example, an Excel sheet, a table in Excel, right? You can, at any particular cell, you can create a record. You can put information in a cell. You can read it, right? You can update it. If you've put a 2, then you could put a 3. You can update it. And then you can delete it. If whatever information you stored on that cell, you can delete it. So those are the four actions. CRUD: create, read, update, and delete. This is what any database allows you to do. Now, DLTs, distributed ledger technologies, you can only do two. You can create and you can read. So the C and the R. You cannot update and you cannot delete the information. So whatever information, whatever data you put in a DLT, it's there and it stays there forever. So it's what we call immutable. It cannot mutate, right? So then you have other properties among databases and blockchains, but like maybe it's not too relevant for now. So blockchain is one type of DLT. There's many others, but blockchain, let's say it's one of the most used ones, although there's other networks that are coming to shape. So there's different types of blockchains as well. We know Bitcoin, we know Ethereum. There's others like Solana, and there's others. So depending on the blockchain, you can have some features or others, because in there's a term we know as the the blockchain trilemma. Okay,
Hmm.
a blockchain can be decentralized, can be secure, and can be scalable, right? Ideally, you want all three, but it's impossible. If you want a very scalable blockchain, it's going to be less secure and it's going to be less decentralized. Whereas if you want a lot of security, it's going to be less secure. It's going to be less scalable. Because going back a bit, whenever you're working with a database, let's say the admin of the database can just input the information, delete it, and he doesn't need any validation from no one. He just goes in, updates the record, and that's it. In a distributed ledger technology, distributed, it means that that so-called database is distributed. So there's a copy of that database among all the stakeholders in the network. So if I want to create a record, I need the validation of all the stakeholders. So it's a more expensive task because you have to replicate that throughout all the stakeholders. but it makes it much more secure. Now, I'm going to ask you, Alejandro, am I making sense up till now, or?
Yes, yes. I think it's very, as I said, it's a very technical thing, but I think like we are prepared for that, me and the audience as well. But it's something also we need to learn, and this is the moment I think to learn about that. And I think many people talk about that on internet, YouTube, many different channels. They talk about cryptocurrencies, they talk about blockchain, smart contracts. They say words like that, but it's like something I guess that most of people don't know. That's why also I think it's very interesting that you are here explaining a bit what's behind and also what are the limits on that, because as you said, there are choices that a company working on blockchain need to do. For example, as you said, you cannot scale up and then be insecure, and then like I mean you need to focus on specific points, and it's also maybe one of your roles, I guess, or people like you, experts, that maybe depending on the market, on the specific company or project, maybe it's better to go in one direction rather than trying to do all at the same time, that maybe it's not worth it. So can you maybe before you talk a bit about Web3, and a very interesting thing, I guess, would be if you could explain a bit like different use cases about blockchain, because as I said, the most trendy is crypto, but for example, the smart contracts are very very interesting. Or even, for example, I don't know if you know, but like in a couple of months, we are in Spain, for example, we are going to be all the companies and all the freelancers. We are going we need to implement a new way of making invoices to our customers, and this is something that, from my mind, it's going to be using something similar to blockchain, because it's going to be through a government, a tax government administration like way, but it's going to be connected to that, and the invoices we are going to be done, they are going to be mutable, as you said, and it's like a similar system. So maybe can you explain a bit more, because I think we more and more are going to see in many different ways this kind of technologies.
So, blockchain technology is called blockchain because you have blocks of information that are chained with each other, and they form a chain of blocks, right? So it's that simple. Each block contains a set of information. So whatever type of information you want to input, could be text, could be video, could be financial data, could be personal or health information, whatever type of data, right? It's stored in a block. And whenever that block is validated by the network, it's there and it stays there forever. It's immutable again, right? So blockchain is just it's just the when we talk about blockchain, we talk at the infrastructure level. So it's like the pipes of if we're thinking about a house, the blockchain would be the pipes where the information flows, but that's it, right? So on top of blockchain, we would have what we know as Web3. So Web3 uses blockchain technology, but uses other technologies as well, right? So if I go a bit, before answering your question, if I go back to explaining a bit how we got to Web3, I think it's going to make more sense for the rest of the conversation. So internet was well, internet was created in the early 70s, but um, it started in the World Wide Web, WWW. It was made public in 1991. So it's got roughly a bit more of 30 years of existence, and it's what we called the static internet. So the web, as we know it throughout the 90s, it was the first version of the internet, and it's like you can think of, I don't know, Wikipedia. So you could only read information. So it was a set of web pages which were linked one another, and these web pages were very simple, just text and images. really, it's like Wikipedia, and that's it. And you could hop from one to another, and that's it. You couldn't do anything else. Then in the early 2000s came the second version, the second iteration of internet, what we now call as the social internet, because it allowed you to read information, but it also allowed you to create information. Remember, we talked about CRUD, create, read, update, and delete. Well, in the second version of the internet, you could also update information. And here we saw the first social media platforms come in, like LinkedIn in 2003, which was one of the first. Um, and it allowed people not just to read information, but to interact with other people. So basically, any website, almost any website that we use today, is a Web2 application. Whether it's Amazon because I can purchase, it's a marketplace. Whether it's if it's YouTube because I can watch a video, but I can comment the video. Whether it's a streaming platform, I can interact with it. What's the problem with Web 2? The problem with Web 2 is that at the beginning it was great, but with time, this internet started to be controlled by big organizations. So Amazon, Facebook, um, whichever, I don't know, eBay, whatever website. So you have big conglomerates that own everything, right? And it doesn't have to be a problem, but if if as I said in the beginning, we're shifting to a digital economy, shouldn't it be fair that I own my digital assets? Because these companies are profiting off my work, right? LinkedIn is much more profitable when they have active users participating in the platform, but I'm the one participating. So shouldn't I get a share of their profits if I'm helping them build? And so here's the idea where Web3 came along, where okay, we're shifting into a digital economy, and so it's just fair that creators, users have a bigger share of the profits, and they can own it. And so again, Web3, you can read, you can create, and you can own whatever data you introduce. Just to make a last simile, in Web 2 is like renting space. So I'm renting space off of LinkedIn. In Web 3, I'm buying the space. So if I put information there, it's mine. And then I can decide what to do what to do with it. Right. Okay. So we've talked about blockchain and we've talked about Web 3. So Web 3 is yeah, Web3 is the internet, let's say. Blockchain is the infrastructure. Web3 has other components, which ones can be smart contracts, could be another component. Oracles, just to say one. Oracles, it's a piece of technology that allows you to link real world data with smart contracts and use it in blockchain and in in blockchain technology as well. And so whatever data we create on in Web3 could be called digital assets or cryptocurrencies, indeed, right? So when we talk about cryptocurrencies, it does not only have to be a financial thing like money. It could be whatever. So if I create a blog post on a Web3 platform, that's a digital asset. So that could be perceived as a currency because I could decide whether I want to exchange my post for money, for views, for whatever, right? And so, yeah, I've laid out a bit the three things I think are most important. Blockchain as a base layer, Web3 as whatever you want to build on top of it, and digital assets is what people may create build in this new internet, so to say.
It sounds really interesting for people like me, for example, that I create content on internet, just for example through this podcast or many other media. But I'm curious because while you were talking about that, I was thinking about already existing things such as intellectual property laws and regulations that, as far as I know, of course, we all know that, for example, if we upload something on in one specific platform, we accept the rules of privacy and terms of these platforms. And it could be YouTube, it could be Spotify, it could be whatever. And of course, sometimes they can make profit on your content, and maybe they don't give you anything. So it's a big problem. But on the other hand, I guess also, for example, this podcast is mine. And for example, even if I want to commercialize this podcast, I need your consent because you, as a person, as you are here and we are both in EU, um, I, you have your ownership of your voice, of your face, and all the things you are saying on this podcast. So even though me or all the platforms I upload this episode want to make profit and make a commercial use of this episode, they need you and me to be both to consent to do that. So I guess it's a bit more tricky. But what I think it's very very different is like, as far as I understood, is like instead of using one technology, that one platform, that it could be the ones I said before or others, is that I have like my own specific website, let's say, or specific like my own thing, and I give I would say maybe the audience direct use to this specific content. So if, for example, once I decide to make uh, advertising or make whatever, I am able to do it because it's my own platform. It's like my own property, and I don't need to share part of the profit with one of these platforms or whatever. Right? That's more or less the idea.
Yes. So what you're talking about is digital identity. And so let's put another example. If in Web2 I want a LinkedIn profile, I just log in, I create a profile, and then I can do whatever I want to do in that small network ecosystem. Now, if I want to be also in YouTube, I create another profile, I create my content, and then I have my information on my other ecosystem, right? Um, one of the one of the things that is quite interesting about this technology is digital identity. So I create my profile, and then I decide if I want to share that with LinkedIn, if I want to share that with YouTube. Again, it should be Web3 based applications, but just to get the idea, right? So I'm the center of it with my information, and I decide who do I share it with. And I decide if I give it for free to LinkedIn and I charge YouTube for it, or I decide to lend it, to sell it, to give it away, right? But what I myself, my internet self,
Hmm.
and it's me. So I'm the owner, and I could do whatever I want with that. Just as my physical being. Okay, I'm going to maybe I'm going to estoy divagando un poco, ¿no? But yeah, just as I'm a physical being and I can decide whether I spend my time working or playing or doing whatever, it's the same with a digital being or a digital twin. Um, yeah, I think that's been understood, I guess. I hope.
Yes, yes, I think so. But I think it's very interesting because it's something so new that I guess it's even difficult to imagine because it's very different. It's another story, and as you said, nowadays there's like just a couple of super big companies that controls all the media on internet, and I guess that also nowadays there is a movement now this at this time to decentralize social networks already, and I think that little by little it could go to directly decentralization of the media, of the identity, of the digital assets as well. And I see because as part of the creator economy or digital economy or whatever, I see that many people around me, digital creators, they are little by little going on their own thing. Like they're coming from, for example, a public podcast or a public YouTube channel or whatever, and they go little by little to a Telegram or Discord or another tool, a community that they control. And I think this is like the first step because, of course,
Yeah.
they still use Telegram or WhatsApp or any other. But maybe the next step would be that they go directly to their own website, their own thing, their own whatever. And as you said, maybe they connect to these platforms, the Web2 platforms, to share whatever they want to maybe make more profit or to arrive to more people or do these kind of things. But at the end of the day, what they really want is to have their own tool, because because as you said before at the beginning and we discussed a bit, it's a pity that for example here, me, until now I have not received any kind of money from any of the platforms I upload these episodes. And of course, as you can imagine, it's time consuming for me. It's also I need to invest a bit on specific platforms, and maybe it's not worth it. So in my case, it's okay because I do this because I want to talk with people like you and to explore new things and learn. But it's not worth it in terms of money. So if I want to create a business on media nowadays, if that would be my idea, I would have need to change directly because it's not directly good in terms of money. So
and
I see
and
that this is a good point.
and also because if you're wanting to build a business on internet or interact with whomever you want across the globe, it's true that you need a middleman, right? So why would I buy a Chinese product off of Amazon? Because they give me trust that this product is no good. So I have an intermediary, which is Amazon, which could give me good customer service and so on. The Web3 is also what we can call a trustless internet because using blockchain technology, I don't need to trust the other person on the other side of the globe that they're going to scam me because they have a digital identity which has been validated by X nodes and X people. So we don't need this intermediary getting their 30% share commission just to give us our service. It's what it's called a peer-to-peer. So I can just get into a network, decide to purchase or to interact with another person across the globe. I don't need to know that person if because I can see if that person is to be trusted or not. So this is a difference in a shift in paradigm in the in the framework as well. Um, let's take another example just to make it more clear. I will be very brief. Let's think of Airbnb, right? I have my house and I want to lend it to another person for their vacations. I, I I use Airbnb as a platform. They get 30% commission because they're giving the trust to both parties that it's going to be a good intersection. Now, what would Airbnb in a decentralized environment look like? Well, Airbnb would not exist, first of all, and the network would get a 50%, a 5% or less cut just to make the network work, but there's no commission. And I directly could log in to this decentralized Airbnb and lend my house to a third party person. Um, since the blockchain stores whatever we did with that property, um, if that person is a scammer, well, it will let me know. This person is not to be trusted, so that's it. Everything's okay. Just don't interact with him. And if he's a trusted person because they've rented out many other homes throughout their time and everything's okay, their digital identity is very good, well, that's it. I will have no problem in in interacting with that third party, right? So again, digital identity, ownership, peer to peer. we don't need a middleman in these cases. In some cases, you will, but mostly not.
Mhm. Yes, I see that point, but I guess it's also very tricky in terms of regulation and sustainability because, for example, you mentioned that the term digital identity, and there is one episode, one of the first episodes of this podcast with Sylvia Lips. I think we were talking a lot about that. It was like 2 years ago already, but it's it's like a good thing, like a super big thing, at least in Europe, talking about that because I guess that, for example, from the AI regulation, you cannot score your digital identity. So, for example, in the example you said, I think it should be really tricky to make an score on your profile or Airbnb, for example, or the new Airbnb, and directly focusing on that. Maybe it's more tricky than that, but I guess that little by little, it's a new way of doing internet, and I guess it's very is the way it's going to be because, as you said before, it's something like now in the present we need these platforms, these middleman platforms, but maybe in a couple of years, if there are other ways to do it, if it's cheaper and it's more efficient and it's as safe as the other way, why are we going to be using that? So yeah, it's of course this is the normal and the natural way to go.
Yeah, and of course, everything I'm saying right now, it feels a bit like utopia, just because, in my view, Web3 is like web like internet was in the 90s. So it was early adopters, really technical people that were in it interacting, and then came mass adoption. So everything I'm talking about, we're still very early stage. I think we're still 5 years ahead. Not ahead, but we're still 5 years behind, seeing mass adoption. So we're seeing small use cases. I just gave a couple of examples. There are projects that are working quite well, but nothing, yeah, at a very small scale. So
Hmm.
there's a lot to do, and this is one of the reasons, I feel there's a lot of work as product managers in this space, right? So this space, is being created by tech people, and this is great. But whenever tech people get too involved in projects, normally they let go of user experience, right?
Hmm.
So, for instance, when I first got in blockchain, everything was hard. Well, it still is, right? It's very hard to understand what a wallet is, how to create one. It's very difficult to get your head around that. If you forget your password, you forgot everything. So you cannot go to the Amazon and recover my password. No, there's not none of that. So it's all. So there's big barriers. There's big risks. So you could potentially lose everything, and this all of this has to do with user experience. So I think, until the point these things are being fixed, and the user can come in one of these networks and start interacting safely, there won't be mass adoption. So plenty of work to do from a product management point of view and usability, and in my regards.
Yes, I think also we are too soon, too early to even understand the future needs and limitations. Because one of the things I have been also thinking about, and we are not going to talk about that because it's maybe another episode, it's about sustainability. Because processing all the transformation of these blockchains could be very expensive in terms of energy, in terms of money, in terms of also of keeping all the data safe in the data centers, and all of that is a big problem, and maybe also we will need to think about that in a couple of years if everything is done with these blockchains, because maybe it's we need to create other types of more efficient blockchains or more efficient ways to process all of that. But as you said, this is very soon. We are maybe 5 years before everything is going to be done. And but I mean, who knows? It was the same with AI a couple of years ago. I think in the last 2028, 2020, sorry, 2018. It was the year when the Transformers models appears, which is the basis of GPT. That maybe most of people know. That is the basis of ChatGPT. And it was only 4 years after the first model appeared, the first transformer model appeared, that we had ChatGPT. So maybe now we are talking about that, and maybe in 2, 3, 5, 4 years, we are going to have a super big, I don't know, tool, model, or whatever that is going to change our world. So it's interesting to be talking about that now.
And it was very interesting, the way AI came to the mass markets, because it was in 2022 with ChatGPT. I think it was the first company to reach a million active daily active users in 1 week. Something had never happened before. And why was that? Because the product was so simple and so intuitive. Intuitive, again, user experience. People didn't have to know anything about artificial intelligence. They just typed in a question and then boom, they got instant feedback and good engagement. So, but artificial intelligence has decades. Has been long. Well, in big corporations and so on, it has been used for very long, right? So I think it's I think this Eureka moment, which was ChatGPT and the AI. I think Web3 will have it as well, but we're still yeah, in a couple of years. But this is why I think it's very important to put it's very important to put the focus on the problem that you're solving and bringing a solution that is very seamless and very easy to understand for the average user. So we will need to see how this goes, right?
Yeah, yeah, of course. And but it's also very interesting to. It's like what's going to be in the future. And actually, if there is someone listening to us in the future, and maybe we are in 2025 recording this episode, so maybe, I don't know, next year in 2026, we are going to have a lot of blockchain and Web3 things. Please don't judge us. We have a limited vision of the future, and of course, it's something. I agree with you that it's something that is going to be in the future for sure, but it's very complicated to understand when. And I guess it's going to be more or less the same way as AI, just a new and very simple tool that is going to be there. Let's say a new YouTube, a new Airbnb, a new whatever, and then after that, little by little, many things are going to be changed. Yeah. Okay,
Exactly.
so Eric, I think we would be talking for hours. I think it's very interesting what we are talking in this episode, but we are running out of time. So just before we finish, I always ask to my guests 3 questions. So the first is, if you could give some advices to someone maybe in your position a couple of years ago, wanting to explore new things. You talk a bit about the entrepreneurship, also blockchain. If you could give an advice to a person maybe listening to us that is in that position, then which is your favorite coffee? Because this is the AI Coffee podcast, so coffee is very relevant here. And also how the audience can connect with you if you want to share your LinkedIn or whatever.
I will start with the second question. My my favorite coffee is the one that has no coffee beans in it, because I don't really like coffee. I can
Wow.
drink it, but it's not my favorite one. So maybe it's the first one, the first time you receive this answer. So
I think
there
this
it
is the
goes.
second actually,
And
but
okay, great. I feel better
I,
now.
I maybe need to ask that at the beginning of the episode. So if you say that, I directly stop the episode
That's
and I
it,
finish
right?
the interview.
Oh, well,
No, but it's
I'm sorry.
okay.
Yeah, yeah, we should have done this at the beginning. No, I mean, yeah, yeah, it's not my favorite drink, and I don't usually drink it. Going to the first question, though, which is a bit more interesting, maybe I could give a better answer. What advice would I give anyone wanting to explore these new technologies? Um, so, first of all, there's 13 advanced technologies that are known that will reshape society. We have AI, we have nanotechnology, we have virtual reality, blah blah blah. There's IoT. There's many. So and they're changing very rapidly. So I would suggest think of which one you like the most and what problems can you solve that interest you and that you feel passion and curiosity for them, right? So it's very hard to know, since we're talking about advanced technologies, it's very hard to know where they're headed, what we will be able to do with them. But just be curious, just try things out, see what works, see what not, what doesn't, and just learn bit by bit. Web3 is a bit like this. It's going to be something very gradual, but if you feel some curiosity out of it or interest, just look for some basic applications that I don't know. If you're a content creator, well, look for Web3 alternatives and start to learn what are the pros or and cons of this. So yeah, just try things out. And that's it. Anyone that wants to connect with me or talk to me or would like to know more about either Web3 or technology in general, or especially product management, how to launch products from scratch, take them from zero to one, as we say, they can connect with me via LinkedIn, which I'm most active. And yeah, just type in my name, Eric Cabañas, and and I will be glad to connect with anyone.
Yeah, I will put the links also on the description of the episode as always, and maybe it's more simple, but yeah, I don't worry for that. And yeah, I'm curious, if you don't like coffee, what do you drink? Tea or water?
I drink water. I do a lot of sport, so I'm always thirsty, and normally what takes the thirst the quickest is water. So yeah,
Wow. No, it's okay. It's okay. I think we accept diversity on this podcast. So
that's
even though
good.
you don't like coffee, we can accept it. But yeah, the next time, please say it at the beginning. So maybe I will consider inviting you.
You
No,
don't
I'm
have to
kidding. I'm
lose
kidding.
30 minutes of your time with a non-coffee lover, huh?
Exactly, exactly. But I guess it's okay to not like coffee. It's just like, this is like a parenthesis. Whenever someone tell me I don't like coffee, it's like, okay, maybe you are not a person, a trusty person. Maybe, but maybe you can say that you like, I don't know, milky and sugar coffee or whatever, which is, as you said, not coffee tasty. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I would have said that, but it's not really coffee. And now that we're talking about this, the main reason I don't really like coffee is, I mean, it's not too bad, but whenever I see people, they wake up, oh, I can't start my day with my coffee. It's like I have enough addictions in my life to also have this one, right? So it's like better. I know it's going to be very good and so on, but yeah, I have too many things going on to have another addiction. Maybe it's a very simplistic view, but yeah, there's an explanation right there.
No, no, it's fine. It's fine. And it's also good. I mean, we cannot like coffee all because already there are like too many people drinking coffee, too many. Whenever I go to my favorite cafes, they are crowded. So it's nice that there is a little bit less people that like coffee also.
Exactly. Yeah, 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 for sure.
Okay, Eric, thank you very much for the time. I think we have been learning a lot during this episode about Web3, blockchain. I guess also there is like a lot of things we could be talking also in other episodes, maybe in the future, whenever it explodes. But I think it has been like the first view for many people, like first conception of something that is going to be in the future. So be prepared for that and think a bit about that, even though it's maybe hard to find use cases nowadays that are real, really, 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 how can I say,
It's
like the
obvious.
basis of your maybe your business, but still it's something that maybe in a couple of years it will change suddenly from one day to another. So it's interesting to be prepared for that. Yeah. What do you say? Do you want to say anything else?
No, I think it's the exactly the same as in AI. We could have the same conversation in a year's time, and it's going to be a whole different story.
Hmm.
Just like AI is changing every 6 months. So yeah, just get the basics. For me, the most important takeaway is Web3 provides you ownership over your digital assets, which is one thing that Web2 didn't resolve quite as well. Maybe we talk again in a year and we have a different definition of it, right?
Yeah, exactly that. And so thank you very much, Eric, and thank you also to you that are watching until the end. If you liked this episode, please subscribe to the podcast. It's free. It really helps me continue doing that, even though I don't earn any euro for doing that. So please do it. And of course, if you can rank me 5 stars, the like button, all that things that we always say, it's very, very interesting for us. So thank you and see you the next time. Bye
Thank
bye.
you very much. Bye.